My mom forced me to give my house to my sister because I'm single. She even filed legal papers claiming it was family property. I fought back in court, got a restraining order, and kept the house. I'm 30, and what started as occasional comments about my living situation has escalated into something I never saw coming. For context, I bought my house 3 years ago. It's a 4-bedroom colonial in a good school district. Yes, I know, ironic for a single guy, but I fell in love with it the moment I saw it. The previous owners had renovated the kitchen. There's a beautiful home office where I run my consulting business, and the backyard is perfect for the garden I've always wanted. I worked my ass off to afford this place, saved for years, and took on extra projects to make the down payment. My younger sister Sarah, 26F, lives in a 2-bedroom apartment with her husband Mark, 28M, and their 2 kids Emma, 4, and Noah, 2M. They're great kids, don't get me wrong, but apparently their current living situation has become the family crisis of the century. It started subtly. My mother Patricia, 53F, would make comments during family dinners. "Such a big house for just one person," she'd say, looking around my dining room. "Sarah's kids are practically sleeping on top of each other in that tiny apartment." I'd brush it off with jokes about needing space for all my hobbies or future plans. But the comments kept coming every single visit. "You know, James, this neighborhood has such wonderful schools. Emma would thrive here. That spare bedroom would make a perfect nursery. Sarah's been talking about having another baby, but where would they put it? It must be so quiet here all by yourself. Don't you get lonely?" 2 months ago, things took a turn. Mom called a family meeting at my house. I thought maybe someone was sick or there was some other emergency. Nope. She prepared an actual presentation. I'm not kidding. She had charts about why Sarah and I should reassess our living situations. Her main points: 1, I'm single with no immediate plans for children. 2, Sarah has a growing family that needs space. 3, my house has 4 bedrooms I'm not utilizing. 4, Sarah's apartment is in a less desirable school district. 5, family helps family. She actually suggested with a straight face that I should either sell my house to Sarah at below market value or trade properties with her. When I laughed, thinking it was a joke, the room went silent. Sarah was sitting there, not making eye contact. Mark looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. And my mother stared at me like I just kicked a puppy. "I don't understand why you're being so selfish," she said. "You have all this space you don't need while your sister's children are cramped in that tiny apartment. Family is supposed to support each other." I tried explaining that I bought this house as an investment, that I work from home, and need the office space, that I'm planning to start my own family eventually, but every argument was met with, "But you're not married now. You don't have children now. Your sister needs help now." The meeting ended with me firmly but politely saying no, and everyone leaving in various states of frustration. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Since then, my mother has sent me articles about the benefits of tiny house living, tagged me in Facebook posts about selfish millennials. I had her real estate agent friend accidentally call me about selling. I mentioned at every family gathering how hard it is for Sarah's family. I started referring to my house as the family property. Sarah hasn't directly asked me for anything, but she stopped bringing the kids to family events at my house, which my mother says is because it's too painful for them to see the space they could have had. Last week was Thanksgiving. I hosted as I have for the past 2 years. My mother spent the entire dinner pointing out how perfect my dining room would be for family birthdays and holidays if a real family lived here. She actually told my aunt that I was hoarding housing while Sarah's family suffered. My father, 55M, has stayed neutral, which in our family means he agrees with Mom but doesn't want to get involved. My brother Michael, 28M, told me privately he thinks the whole thing is insane, but he won't say anything publicly because he doesn't want to become the next target. Here's what really gets me. I've offered to help Sarah and Mark with their down payment savings. I've babysat for free countless times. I've given them thousands of dollars in birthday and Christmas gifts over the years. But because I won't give up my home, I'm suddenly the family villain. I worked 70-hour weeks to afford this house. I gave up vacations, drove a beater car for years, lived on ramen through my 20s. Meanwhile, Sarah and Mark took yearly trips to Europe, bought new cars, and lived their best lives, which is fine, their choices. But now I'm selfish for not handing over what I sacrificed for. The worst part is the guilt. Sometimes I lie in bed in my too big house and wonder if I am being selfish. Would a good brother just give up his house, trade it for a tiny apartment? Except that because I'm single, my needs matter less, I love my family, but I'm starting to dread every interaction. Christmas is coming up, and I'm already anxious about what new guilt trips await. My mother has started making comments about Christmas in a family home and how children deserve to wake up in a real house on Christmas morning. Am I crazy for thinking this whole situation is insane? Should I consider their proposal, or am I right to stand firm on keeping the house I worked so hard for? Update 1 2 weeks later. I wish I could say things have gotten better since my last post. They haven't. If anything, they've escalated in ways I never imagined possible. After I posted, I took everyone's advice and tried to set firm boundaries. I sent a group text to my family saying I love them all, but the house discussion was closed, and I'd appreciate if we could move forward without bringing it up again. The responses were enlightening. Mom, we'll discuss this in person. This affects the whole family. Sarah, I'm sorry you feel attacked. That wasn't anyone's intention. Mark, whatever you decide, bro. Michael, good for you. Dad, read receipts only. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. Then came last Sunday. I was working in my home office when I heard car doors slamming outside. I looked out to see Sarah's minivan in my driveway. She was unloading both kids along with what looked like bags of toys. Weird, since we hadn't planned anything, but okay, maybe she needed an emergency babysitter. I opened the door and Emma ran past me yelling, "We're here to see our new rooms." I looked at Sarah, who was avoiding eye contact again. Mom said it would be good for the kids to get familiar with the house, she mumbled. Before I could respond, my mother's car pulled up. She got out with a woman I didn't recognize who was carrying a folder and wearing a blazer with a real estate company logo. James' mom called out cheerfully, "Perfect timing. This is Linda from Coldwell Banker. She's here to do a comparative market analysis so we can make sure the trade is fair for everyone." I stood there speechless as this real estate agent extended her hand to shake mine. "Your mother tells me you're looking to downsize. How exciting. I've seen your sister's apartment. It's quite lovely for a bachelor pad." The kids were already upstairs. I could hear them running between bedrooms with Emma declaring which one would be hers and which would be Noah's. Sarah had followed them up ostensibly to supervise, but really to avoid the confrontation she knew was coming. "Mom," I said as calmly as I could manage, "I need you and Linda to leave." "No." Linda looked confused. My mother's face transformed from cheerful to wounded in an instant. "I'm trying to help both my children," she said, tears already forming. "Why are you so determined to be difficult?" I explained to Linda that there was no house trade, that this was a misunderstanding, and that I was sorry she'd wasted her time. She left quickly, clearly uncomfortable, but my mother stayed and things got ugly. She accused me of being materialistic and not caring about family, of trying to hurt her grandchildren, of being bitter about Sarah having a family when I didn't, of wasting God's blessings, or probably being gay, because why else wouldn't I want a family? That last one hit hard. Not because there's anything wrong with being gay, but because it showed how desperate she was to find some explanation for why I wouldn't give up my house. I finally had to raise my voice to get her attention. I told her that if she ever brought a real estate agent to my house again, or if she continued this campaign, I would have to reconsider how much time I spent with the family. I told Sarah to get the kids and leave. The kids were upset about leaving their new house. Emma cried the whole way to the car, asking why Uncle James was being mean and not sharing. My heart broke, but I also realized this was manipulation at its finest, using the kids as emotional weapons. Sarah finally spoke up as she was buckling them in. "You know, James, it wouldn't kill you to at least consider it. This house means everything to my kids. Then maybe you and Mark should have prioritized saving for one instead of taking all those trips," I snapped back. She left without another word, but the look she gave me could have frozen hell. Since then, I've been getting messages from extended family. Apparently, Mom has been calling everyone, telling them I'm refusing to help Sarah's family despite having more than enough space. My aunt suggested I could at least let them move in with me. My cousin asked if I was planning to die alone in that big house. The only support I've gotten is from Michael, who texted, "Stand your ground. If you give in now, what's next? Your car, your bank account. Where does it end?" He's right, but it doesn't make this easier. I love my niece and nephew. I love my sister despite everything, but I'm starting to realize that love shouldn't require me to sacrifice everything I've worked for. I've started looking into security cameras, not because I think they'd break in, but because I honestly don't know what boundaries they're willing to cross anymore. The fact that I'm even considering this about my own family makes me sick. I also called a lawyer friend to ask about my options if this escalates. He laughed at first, thinking I was joking. When he realized I wasn't, he got serious real quick. Document everything he said. Save every text, every email. If they're this bold now, who knows what's next? Who knows what's next? That's what keeps me up at night in my too big house. How did we get here? How did my American dream become my family's target? I'll update again if anything happens. Part of me hopes it won't be necessary, but I know my family better than that. Update 2. 6 weeks later. I've been staring at my screen for an hour trying to figure out how to write this update. I guess I'll just start with what happened and let you all judge for yourselves. After my last update, things went quiet for about 2 weeks. No texts, no calls, no surprise visits. I actually started to hope that maybe they'd finally accepted my decision. I should have known better. They weren't backing off. They were regrouping. It started with a certified letter. I almost didn't sign for it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a formal letter from a law firm I didn't recognize requesting my attendance at a family property mediation session. I actually laughed out loud. Then I read the details. The letter outlined how my mother, as the family matriarch, was concerned about the inequitable distribution of resources among her children. It suggested that mediation would help us reach a fair and amicable solution that would benefit all parties, especially the minor children involved. They'd actually hired a mediator, a professional mediator, to convince me to give up my house. I immediately called my lawyer friend Tom. This time he didn't laugh. "James, this is harassment," he said. "They can't force you into mediation over property you own outright, but the fact they're trying is concerning. Have you considered a restraining order? A restraining order against my own mother?" The thought made me physically ill, but I had to admit I was considering it. I decided to attend the mediation mainly to see how far they were willing to take this. Tom advised against it, but I figured having everything on official record might help if I eventually needed legal protection. The mediation was scheduled for last Tuesday at 3 p.m. I arrived to find not just my mother Sarah and Mark, but also my father, who'd been suspiciously absent from this whole drama, and my mother's sister, my Aunt Linda. The mediator, a woman named Dr. Foster, started by asking us each to share our perspective. Mom went first, of course. What followed was 20 minutes of the most manipulative performance I've ever witnessed. She cried about her fears for her grandchildren's future. She painted a picture of Sarah's family practically living in squalor. They have a nice apartment in a safe neighborhood. She talked about family values and how, in her day, family members sacrificed for each other without question. Then came the kicker. She revealed that she and Dad had co-signed loans for Sarah and Mark over the years. Loans I knew nothing about. Loans that were apparently impacting my parents' ability to retire comfortably. If James would just do the right thing, she said, dabbing at her eyes. Your father and I could finally stop worrying about everyone. Sarah went next, talking about how hard it was to raise children in a small space, how the schools in her area weren't as good as mine, how she just wanted the best for her kids. She actually said, "I'm not asking for charity, I'm willing to trade. It's not like James would be homeless." Mark mumbled something about supporting whatever Sarah needed. My father said he just wanted everyone to be happy. Aunt Linda launched into a speech about how her children always helped each other, and she couldn't understand why I was being so difficult. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. I stated that I had purchased my house with my own money, that I had already offered to help Sarah and Mark save for a down payment, and that I wasn't interested in selling or trading my property. Dr. Foster then tried to explore compromises. Could I rent the house to Sarah at below market rate? Could we arrange a rent-to-own situation? Could I at least let them live with me temporarily? Each time I said no, the room got more hostile. My mother actually stood up at one point and said, "I'm ashamed to call you my son." That's when I'd had enough. I stood up Dr. Foster for her time and headed for the door. But my mother wasn't done. "I've already talked to a lawyer," she announced. "About grandparents' rights, about how you're alienating those children from their family by refusing to provide them with adequate housing." I turned around slowly. "What are you talking about?" She pulled out another folder. More papers, more official letterhead. This time from a family law attorney, outlining how my refusal to support the welfare of minor family members could be construed as a form of neglect. How my mother, as a concerned grandmother, had standing to petition the court, how there were precedents for family property being redistributed for the benefit of children. It was all, of course. Tom confirmed that later. But the fact that she'd gone this far, that she'd actually consulted lawyers about trying to force me to give up my house, broke something in me. "You're trying to sue me for my house?" I asked incredulously. "I'm trying to protect my grandchildren," she replied, chin raised. "Something you clearly don't care about." I left without another word. But as I was getting in my car, Sarah ran out after me. "James, please," she said. "Just think about it. We could make this work. The kids love your house so much. Don't you want to be the uncle who gave them a better life?" "I want to be the uncle who teaches them that you earn what you have," I replied. "Not that you guilt and manipulate family members into giving you things." She called me cruel. said I was punishing her children for her mistakes, said I'd regret this when I was old and alone with no one to visit me in my big empty house. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've changed all my locks, installed security cameras. I met with Tom to discuss my legal options. I blocked my mother on everything except email for documentation. I started seeing a therapist because this whole situation has me questioning everything. The family has blown up, of course. I'm getting messages from relatives I haven't spoken to in years, all with opinions about what I should do. Most think I should compromise in some way. A few think I should just give in to keep the peace. Only Michael and surprisingly my cousin David have supported me. David even shared his own story about how our grandmother tried to force him to give his car to his younger brother years ago. It never ends, he warned. Give in once, and you'll be the family ATM forever. The therapist has been helpful. Actually, she's helped me see how this isn't really about the house. It's about control entitlement and decades of family dynamics I'm only now starting to understand. Apparently, I've always been the responsible one, the one who could handle things himself, who didn't need help. Sarah was always the one who needed rescuing from bad relationships, from financial mistakes, from her own choices. And my mother was always the rescuer with me, funding the operation indirectly through loans that were never repaid and gifts that were expected rather than appreciated. The house just represents the biggest thing I have that could solve Sarah's latest crisis. And my refusal to hand it over breaks the pattern our family has operated on for decades. I don't know what comes next. Tom says to document everything and be prepared for escalation. The therapist says to maintain boundaries and focus on my own well-being. Michael says to consider moving and not telling anyone where. I love my family, I love my sister, I adore my niece and nephew. But I'm starting to realize that love doesn't mean lighting yourself on fire to keep others warm. I'll update again if anything significant happens. For now, I'm just trying to enjoy my home security cameras and all, and remember why I worked so hard for it in the first place. Final update, 4 months later. I've debated whether to write this final update for weeks now. Part of me wanted to just disappear from this account and move on with my life. But I know a lot of you have been invested in the saga, and honestly, writing it out helps me process everything that's happened. So here goes. The conclusion to the house drama that consumed my life for the better part of a year. After my last update, things escalated quickly. My mother made good on her threats and actually filed some sort of legal petition. It wasn't a real lawsuit. Even her lawyer apparently told her she had no case, but it was enough to force me to hire my own attorney and respond formally. The petition was honestly unhinged. It claimed that I was causing emotional distress to minor children by hoarding family resources. It suggested that as a single childless adult, I had a moral obligation to prioritize the needs of the family's children. It even included statements from various family members about how my selfishness was tearing the family apart. My favorite part was where it referred to my house as the family estate, as if it was some ancestral property and not something I'd bought 3 years ago with my own money. Tom, who'd gone from casual advisor to my actual attorney, filed a response that basically amounted to legal language for "Are you kidding me?" He also advised me to file a restraining order, which I finally did. Not against everyone, just my mother, after she showed up at my workplace trying to mediate with my boss about giving me time off to focus on family obligations. Yes, she actually tried to get me in trouble at work over this. The restraining order was granted temporarily pending a hearing. That hearing was something else. My mother showed up with Sarah Mark, my father, 2 aunts, and 3 cousins as character witnesses. She prepared a binder, a literal binder documenting every family event I'd attended at my house, trying to prove that it was the family gathering place and therefore somehow communal property. She sobbed through her testimony about how I was destroying the family, how her grandchildren cried themselves to sleep in their cramped apartment, how she'd failed as a mother to raise a son with compassion. The judge was not impressed. He granted the restraining order for 1 year and told my mother that property ownership doesn't work the way she seemed to think it did. He also strongly suggested she seek counseling. Sarah's testimony was harder to hear. She talked about how she'd always looked up to me, how she thought I'd be the one to help her when she needed it most. She said I'd chosen things over family and that she'd never forgive me for putting her children through this. But then the judge asked her a simple question. Did your brother purchase this house with his own money? Yes. But did he offer to help you save for your own house? Yes, but then what exactly is the issue here? She couldn't answer because there was no answer that didn't boil down to, I want what he has. The restraining order changed everything. Suddenly the flying monkeys couldn't harass me directly. The family events I couldn't attend because my mother would be there had to go on without me. The narrative started to shift without me there to be the villain. My mother turned her attention to other family members. Why wasn't Aunt Linda helping more? Surely cousin Jessica could lend Sarah money. She just got that promotion. What about Michael? He didn't have kids either. Maybe he should sell his condo and help out. One by one, family members started reaching out to me. Not to apologize exactly, but to say things like, "I understand now," or "I didn't realize how bad it was." My cousin David told me that Mom had started suggesting he should let Sarah's family use his vacation home for free since they couldn't afford vacations. The real turning point came about 2 months ago. Sarah and Mark announced they were getting divorced. Turns out the stress of the housing situation was just the tip of the iceberg. Mark had been having an affair, Sarah had been hiding credit card debt, and they'd been staying together for the kids while making each other miserable. Suddenly, the 4-bedroom house wouldn't have solved anything. Sarah needed a smaller place anyway. The whole growing family narrative fell apart when it came out that Mark had gotten a vasectomy last year without telling anyone. My mother tried to spin this as more reason why I should help. Now Sarah was going to be a single mother. She needed family support more than ever. But by this point, even her most loyal supporters were starting to see the pattern. Last month, I got an email from my father. It was the first time he'd reached out directly since this all started. He apologized for staying silent, admitted he'd been wrong to let it go this far, and told me something that explained a lot. This wasn't the first time Mom had done something like this. Apparently, when I was in college, she tried to convince him to take out a second mortgage to buy Sarah a car because she needed it more than I needed help with tuition. He'd refused, and she'd given him the silent treatment for months. There were other stories, too. Times she'd volunteered him to give away tools, sports equipment, even his classic car to various family members who needed them more. "I should have stood up to her years ago," he wrote. "I'm sorry you had to be the one to finally do it." 2 weeks ago, I heard through Michael that Mom had started therapy. Apparently, losing access to me combined with the family starting to distance themselves from her manipulation had been a wake-up call. I hope she gets the help she needs, but I'm not ready to break the no-contact rule yet. Maybe someday, but not now. Sarah and I haven't spoken since the hearing. I heard she's moved back in with Mom temporarily while she figures out her next steps. I've maintained my offer to help with a down payment when she's ready to buy her own place, but I doubt she'll ever take me up on it. Pride is a funny thing. The house feels different now. 4 months. Every room reminded me of the fight of my mother pointing out where Sarah's furniture would go, of my niece and nephew running through the halls calling it their house. But lately, it's starting to feel like mine again. I've redecorated a bit, hosted some friends, even had a few dates. I'm still in therapy, still working through the guilt and the grief of losing the family I thought I had. But I'm also discovering the peace that comes with boundaries, the freedom of not being responsible for everyone else's happiness. To everyone who's asked, yes, I still love my family. No, I don't regret standing my ground. Yes, it was worth it, even though I lost relationships I valued. Because at the end of the day, a house isn't just walls and rooms, it's the life you build inside it. And nobody has the right to demand you tear down what you've built just because they failed to build their own. I know some of you have been in similar situations. Your stories in the comments and DMs have helped more than you know. To those still struggling with family boundary issues, it's okay to say no. It's okay to protect what you've worked for. It's okay to love people from a distance when up close is too destructive. This will be my last update. I need to close this chapter and move forward. Thank you all for following along, for your advice, your support, and your own stories. May your homes, whatever size they are, be filled with peace and free from family drama. And to answer the question I've been asked most often, no, I don't think I'll be hosting Thanksgiving this year or possibly ever again. And that's okay too.